We're going to be talking about, should there be an option to mute the UFC commentary? I believe there should be, especially as a paying customer. If you pay for the pay-per-view and you pay for the fight pass, you should be able to mute the UFC commentary and still hear the sounds in the background, like the strikes landing and the coaches talking in between rounds and during the fight, and whatever the fighters are saying. Over the years, UFC commentary has just been getting worse and worse and worse. The whole time I have been a UFC fan, the commentary has been bad. But over the last year or two, it has been getting abysmal and unlistenable. Commentary is very important. This is because casual fans make up the largest percentage of fans. And the UFC commentary will have sway over what the casual fans are thinking and because they'll be listening to the commentary and looking at the fight. It will have sway over what they think and who's winning and who they think is winning the fight. And this could have an impact on who the fans think won the fight online and on social media if the commentary is either biased or just wrong. The UFC might have thought it was a good idea to include ex-UFC fighters on the commentary desk. And in theory, this should be a good idea, as they should know more about the sport as anyone else. And as they were fighters, they should understand what it's like to be a fighter. And this should lead them to be a better commentator. But it's been clear from the people they've chosen in Daniel Cormier that ex-double champ at light heavyweight and heavyweight, one of the best fighters ever, just incredibly biased, especially towards wrestling. And even to this day, he will defend wrestling, his precious wrestling, even though, especially in American wrestling, we do not see it work in today's sport. And he knows it doesn't work. There's multiple videos of him talking about how double legs don't work and you need to switch to a single, you need to move, you need to chain wrestle and do all of that. But he's not doing the steps to improve American wrestling in the UFC and improve this. He's just complaining about it and being very, very biased towards it, which leads to bad commentary and people not even wanting to listen to it, and could lead to people stop being fans of the UFC. As well as this, eating on his job. I understand that he's working for 8 hours straight, but this is once a week max. He isn't at every event. He isn't. He's at most of them, but this is once a week. You're telling me he can't keep his stomach sound for once a week? Why can't he just eat a big meal before he goes and commentates? Why does he need to eat during commentary, during a fight? Do you know how disrespectful that would be? Like, if I was a fighter, I'd be like, what? A commentator's eating during my fight? The other ex-UFC champion and fighter that is used the most on a commentary desk is Michael Bisping, who lets his ego get in his way, and this leads to his commentary either being incredibly stupid, where he just says stuff like, get up. He's in a bad position, saying obvious things that don't need to be said. Or he just starts digging into the fighter in general, which there's just no need for. And it is a fact that if Bisping was a commentator, if there was a commentator like Bisping when Bisping was fighting, Bisping would beef him. Bisping would not like himself as a commentator if he was fighting, and that is just a fact. However, Bisping has good content. I like his podcast with Paul Felder now. It was with, on paper, Anthony Smith before, but we don't talk about that. He's a good UFC content creator, but he is not a good commentator, and he needs to stop commentating. He really does. But then we move on to the worst of them all, Joe Rogan. He wasn't even a high-level fighter. Fair enough, black belt in Taekwondo. He knew what he was talking about back in the old days. But it's clear, with his podcast, with everything that he's going on in his life, kids, he does not spend enough time watching the UFC. He is a casual, and he does not know enough to be commentating these events. Which is fine. He's got bigger things going on in his life and more important, but he should not be a commentator for the UFC. And before, it might have brought in eyes, but Everyone who watches Joe Rogan has already heard about the UFC, so he's already brought in all the eyes he's going to bring, bar a couple more. It's not going to make that much of a significant difference, so we don't need him on commentary. It is clear from him just repeating the same things over and over and over again that he does not know what's going on in today's world in the UFC and is a casual. Why do we need to know about calf kicks every single event he's at? We know the calf kicks do damage. Most of the time, they don't do that much damage unless you're Alex Pereira or Jan Blachowicz or you're a established leg kicker. Most of these fighters ain't getting TKO'd from leg kicks. The leg kicks aren't affecting them too much. And then he goes on about how the steel cups can be used for submissions every single bloody card. We don't need to know. We actually don't. Even the casual fans will know this because they would have heard it every single UFC event they've already watched. So saying this for the new fans coming in at every single event Joe Rogan's at does not need to be done. Maybe once a year, twice a year. We don't need this every single event. But enough of shitting on commentaries. We move on to a decent commentator in Jon Anik, who has done no martial arts, is not an ex-UFC fighter, but it's clear that he cares about his job and he values his job and he is committed towards his job. He has had some questionable moments before, like that both these fighters have been in custody battles in the past. It's just like, I don't know why that needed to be said. It was unnecessary and very weird, and that's not the only time it has happened. But he is a lot less biased towards the martial arts and towards certain people, and it is clear he does the necessary research and pays attention to what has happened more than anyone else on that desk. One of the ex-fighters that is a good commentator is Dominic Cruz, who recently just retired, which could be good news as we could be seeing him more on the commentary desk. He is a lot less biased than the rest of his contemporaries. He does way more research, and it is clear that he still pays attention to what goes on in today's UFC and is very analytical and breaks down the fights very well as they are happening. We move on to our last UFC commentator that I'm going to be talking about, and it is Paul Felder. He was never a champion like the rest. He was a lightweight contender and has fought some big names. To him not being a champion, he doesn't have an ego. He is very, very analytical when it comes to his takes and his breakdowns and predictions for the fights. His predictions are very analytical. He knows what he is. He articulates himself very well, unlike some of his other contemporaries. However, we do not see the UFC use Dominic Cruz, use Paul Felder enough. Obviously, Dominic Cruz, it was not because of he's not big enough, it's because he was fighting. So now he's retired, we might see him more. But why not use Paul Felder? He knows what he's talking about. He's way better. He's not eating during the fight. He is not talking about the same 2-3 things over and over and over again. And he is better than Jon Anik. And Jon Anik wasn't an ex-UFC fighter, so it confuses me why they use these three people when there are better options. And the UFC commentary is such an integral part of the sport because casual fans make up such a large percentage of the fan base, and they will listen to what the commentary says, and that will have an influence on how they see the fight playing out and how they see the outcome of the fight playing out, which will have a knock-on effect on what is said on social media and the majority of fans thinking who won the fight. This is why commentary is so important, and the UFC need to deal with this now. And if not, it's just going to get worse and worse until they either sort it out or people just stop watching due to how bad the commentary is. Let me know what you think. Let me know, should there be an option to mute the UFC? Who's your favourite UFC commentator? And am I wrong? Am I just waffling? Let me know.